this video, I'm going to show you how to make some DIY art using melted crayons. Basically, we're going to melt wax all the way down the center, kind of creating a line of wax, and then we're just going to push that wax to the left and right, moving it to the edges of the canvas. I think it ends up looking a lot like a backbone, hence the vertebrae method. For this project, you're going to need something to protect your workspace with, either plastic or newspapers, an assortment of crayons. I usually pick between 3 to 5 colors. Any size canvas that you like. Just be sure that your canvas is not a canvas panel. In my experience, they're really hard to work with when you're trying to melt the crayons and then push the wax around. I also find it useful to have something to prop the canvas up off the workspace. You'll need a heat source, a heat gun or a hairdryer work well, and a knife will come in handy too. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you properly prepare your workspace. The crayons are going to splatter, and so just make sure that you cover everything nearby that might get some crayon on it. I had a special request for this project that I make it look blue and gray. So the colors that I picked were obviously, I picked gray, I picked blue, I also picked a gray-blue crayon and also a white crayon to use on this project. You should plan to use more than one crayon of each color. If your canvas is larger, you're going to need to melt more crayons in order to cover the canvas. You need to take the paper off of each crayon so that you don't catch it on fire when you're heating it up. An easier way to get the paper off is if you take a knife and slice it down the side of the crayon and then rip off the paper. Now the fun part begins. I noticed that I have a bit more success when I start with the darkest color. So in this case, I started with the gray, and think of it kind of as your background color. Remember, with this method, you want to make a line of wax down the center of the canvas and then push it to the edges. I also pick up the canvas occasionally and twist it around just so that I can get whatever easy access to it that I need. Add some more wax wherever you need to, and let the wax spill all the way over the edges. Then I pick up the next darkest color. In this case, I started working with the blue. I just did the same thing. I melted a bunch of the crayon in the center of the canvas and then I pushed it out to the edges with the heat gun. Make sure when you push it to the edges that you go all the way to the edge and that you actually let it spill over the edge. So your canvas doesn't just look good from the front, it also looks good if you're looking at it from the sides too. Just have fun with it. You never really know what's gonna happen. That wax is gonna go all over the place. So you can try to guide it if you can, but for the most part, it's just gonna do whatever it wants to do. Just keep pushing it around and see what happens. Add a little more color here and there until you're happy with it. And then when you think it looks good, move on to the next color. I had a little trouble getting the heat gun to push the wax directly to the side, so I'm picking it up and using gravity to help the wax move straight down the canvas. If you feel like you're getting too much wax in certain places, you can always just run your heat gun over it, heat up that wax until you can push it to the edges some more. The last color I usually use on these is either a bit of white or black, and I use it as a highlighting color just to kind of make it pop a little bit more and help with the shading in certain spots. I don't use a lot of it, just here and there to give it a little bit more interest. And then I'll go over the edges again and just make sure that the wax moved off the edges of the canvas so it's not really built up and thick on there. After the wax has a chance to dry, the last thing I do is flip the canvas over and I scrape off any excess wax on the back. And here is the finished product. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel.